Well, welcome, and thank you so much for being here for How to Ace the Common App essay. So this is geared towards juniors and seniors in high school. However, if you have a younger child, or even if you're an older mom or dad or relative, I assure you, you will get something out of this presentation, because how to write a good Common App essay and how to ace it is really a way for you to hone your writing skills and make any sort of writing that you do shine. So how many of you either have a junior or have a senior in the room? Can you raise your hand? Oh, I raised my hand, but I actually don't. My kids are older. They're 20 and 24. And let's get started. So what is the Common App? So hopefully most of you in here are familiar with the Common App, but maybe some of your juniors are not really familiar with the Common App. So the Common App is a unified application system to apply to colleges. What does that mean? That means your child will input their grades, their transcript, their academics, their activities, and they can locate that at commonapp.org. That's just a little logo. So about your grades, if you're a junior, you can change those grades. If you're a senior, a lot of that's already done. And your grades, they are what they are. You can't change them. If you were in a lot of clubs, that's also hard to change, especially if you're a senior. If you're a junior, you can join some more clubs and kind of enhance your resume. But the thing that you can do to stand out is the Common App essay and your personal statement. So why is the Common App essay so important? So you see it says you are special? Watch. Okay, that little twirl was very cool, I know, and I have something even more awesome. Some of you may remember this song. So if you do, sing along, it's just a short excerpt from it. You guys know who this is? You know this guy? You're the only
Party.
You're the only one like you. Sing it. There isn't another in the whole world who can do the things you do, because you are special, special. Everyone is special. Okay, so you get it. Everyone is special. Barney was right then and he's right now. What does that mean, being special? Are you special if you are the valedictorian? Well, I mean, yes, actually you are special if you're valedictorian. But are you special if you're just getting, great grades? Does that inherently make you special? And I'm going to say it doesn't, because you can be special and not have all A's. There are a lot of things that make you special or your student special. And you need to convey this through the Common App, because the Common App is really seen by virtually every college you apply to. And it's the single most impactful essay. It's what distinguishes you from other candidates. It's about who you are. It's rather than listing the things that you've done. It's an opportunity for you to show the admissions officers all about you and what makes you special. So you have to understand, these admissions officers, they are reading thousands of essays, and you could imagine how this could be 8 hours later if you're the last essay. You really need to knock their socks off to get their attention. And these admissions officers have a lot of pull. So there's different kinds of admissions. There's early admissions, there's regular admissions, there's also deferrals, there's wait lists. There's lots of opportunities for the admissions officer to go to bat for you. And if they really like your Common App essay, they are more likely to pass you along to the next level. Or if they're around a table debating, should I admit this person or that person, your admissions officer may go that extra mile for you because of your Common App essay, and you showed them how special you are. So the Common App essay, it's an opportunity for you to do a couple of things. So this sign, it says, "This is who I am." So your grades, they don't really show who you are necessarily. They may show that you are quote unquote smart, or that you may have challenges in math but it doesn't really get to your essence. And so the Common App essay is an opportunity for your student to create their narrative, to share their personality, to express feelings, emotions, illuminate their perspective, and demonstrate core values. So that sounds kind of like a lot to do in one essay, but you can do it, and there are certain things that you can keep in mind in order to have a stronger essay. So what makes a great Common App essay? So there's one little piece of information that is key. So if you walk away from this session only remembering one thing besides the Barney song, it would be show, don't tell. What does that mean? So you want a deeply personal connection, and you do that by showing, not just telling. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you're talking about Thanksgiving, and I say, Thanksgiving was always the big holiday in my house. Okay, well, that's fine. I'm telling you what's happening in my house. And what if I told you second cousins, aunts, uncles pour in around 4 p.m. with still warm from the oven cornbread and armfuls of Tupperware containers filled with sides, T-2 hours until our Thanksgiving feast. What did you like better, number 1 or number 2? Fingers up. 2. Okay, of course 2. Number 1 is boring. I'm just like, okay, great, you had people over for Thanksgiving. I mean, that's, who doesn't? But the other one, you get an image. I'm kind of actually getting hungry right now, my own image. You know, it's something that just shows you, it brings you into the story and is engaging. Another thing you want to make sure that you do with the Common App essays is avoid cliches, because these admissions officers hear this thing like, be the change you wish to see in the world. Now, I'm not saying that you can't think that that's a good saying, because it is, but you're going to have to show them and not tell them. Also, you should avoid lavish, exaggerated claims like, it was the greatest experience of my life. Okay, you just told me that, but show me. Put me there with you. Describe it so that I can come out of it saying, wow, this was the greatest experience of their life. So how to get started, because this sounds like a kind of a big task. So it depends where you are in your college journey. If you're a freshman or a sophomore, if your student is a freshman or a sophomore, what I would suggest is not really to focus on the Common App at all, is to focus on your passions. Not what mom and dad tell you your passions are, what you tell you your passions are. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't guilty of this with my own kids, trying to force what I wanted down their throats at times, but I would strongly encourage you to have your children follow their true passions and not just something that's going to look good on a college resume, because these people that are reading these applications and your essays can really read between the lines. So the first thing to do would be to brainstorm. If you're a junior, or especially if you're a senior and this is a pressing issue, just brainstorm, just get it out there. It doesn't matter how silly it sounds or what, just write stuff down. Think about, who am I? What is unique about me? What matters to me? When you think about all those questions, write that stuff down, organize it, and you know what? Just begin to write, because you have to start somewhere. And sometimes it's really hard to get started, but if you're going to brainstorm, you can just write down everything and you don't have to worry about it being wrong. So here I have on this slide a list of questions for the upcoming 2021-2022 prompts that you can find at commonapp.org. And you have a word count range, a very wide range actually, from 250 to 650. And I'm just going to read some of them so that you can, oh, I have to go back. There we go, sorry about that. So one is, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. Number 2, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? Maybe as I'm reading, you're thinking, oh my gosh, yes, I do have one of these things. And go ahead, write it down. Number 3, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? Number 4, by the way, is a new pandemic question, and it focuses on kindness. It says, reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? So that's a very interesting and new question. For the most part, the Common App essay questions stay very much the same. This is a new question. Number 5, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. Number 6, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? And then number 7, I love this one because I'll read it to you. Share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. So basically, you can write about any topic for any time. And that has been a consistent prompt. So that's the good news. If you find yourself, I don't fall into any of these categories, you can write about whatever you want to write about, which is awesome. So, topics to avoid. Number 1 is COVID-19. Now, it doesn't seem logical to not talk about COVID-19 because this has had an impact on every single one of us as students, as parents, just as human beings. And it's a lot, and it's heavy, and it has a real effect. However, the Common App has a separate question that addresses community disruptions such as COVID and natural disasters. And I'd like to read that question to you. And it is an optional question. You don't have to answer it. And there's a 250-word limit, so it's a shorter question. Community disruptions such as COVID-19 and natural disasters can have deep and long-lasting impacts. If you need, the space is yours to describe those impacts. Colleges care about the effects on your health and well-being, safety, family circumstances, future plans, and education, including access to reliable technology and quiet study spaces. Describe how these events have impacted you. So when I say topics to avoid, the coronavirus, COVID-19, my suggestion is to not make it the focus of your essay, because you can address anything that of your COVID or coronavirus pandemic concerns in this separate section. Another topic or topics that I suggest you avoid in the Common App essay are highly polarized, sensitive topics, meaning stay away from anything that may be considered racist, sexist, homophobic. It seems like that's kind of natural logic, but sometimes people, they can't help themselves and they want to talk about liberal versus conservative issues. Now, you may be applying to a very liberal institution, but you don't know the reader of your Common App essay. So you don't want to go Trump bashing on a Common App essay. And conversely, if you're applying to a very conservative institution, you don't want to go bashing the left. Not a good idea. Better topics highlight common themes, universal values, integrity, kindness, honesty. Those are the kind of things that you want to touch on, and not something that's going to anger or stress out someone reading your essay. So once you have an essay in place, let's talk about the review process. So take a look at this little stick figure. You need to ask someone who's got your back. What does that mean? Someone that's going to help you in a way that you need to be helped. And that person might not be mom or dad. It might be an older sibling. It could be a peer. You have to figure out who is really the best person to assist you in the review process. So a couple of things. You have a built-in review, which is spell check. Spell check is your best friend. I cannot stand when someone, a student, gives me an essay to review and there are errors that spell check could have picked up. Now, a lot of times there are errors, grammatical errors and so forth that spell check can't pick up. But before you give it to someone to review, spell check. That's really the first thing you need to do. If you don't have someone that you think that you could turn to have them read it, maybe look also to your school guidance counselor. That's often a good person that will be willing to give it a read. As far as yourself, you can actually serve as a reviewer, and there's a little trick. You can read your essay out loud. And believe it or not, that can help illuminate the need for details because you can hear it as a story and you can see what things might be missing. But I do suggest that you find someone else to proofread for grammar, flow, readability, and engagement. I want to caution you about hired help. Now, people do hire me to help their students. When my son was going through this process, he and I were not doing well. Mother and son, we were kind of going at each other. So I felt it was best to hire someone to assist him with the essays. It was very expensive, by the way, which was crazy. A lot more than I charged. But we had this person, and there's a couple of things that I learned from this person. The good thing I learned, and I will pass this along to you so you don't have to hire someone to learn this lesson. So a lot of you out there have people, the students may have a bleeding disorder, may have a sibling with a bleeding disorder. But my son does not have a bleeding disorder. His sister has one, but he has fine motor skill issues, OT issues. When he was 3, I had to take him to early intervention. He would always have all sorts of exercises and would put his hands into putty to try and get things. He has trouble still to this day, tying shoes if you had a contest with him, all those things. I said, Joe, I think you should write about that. I think you should write about overcoming that challenge because he did really well in high school. He was on the honor roll, had jobs as a waiter. I thought as the mom that this is the best thing for him to do so he can show the Common App reviewers that he persevered and he, pulled through, and now he's doing so well despite this early challenge in his life. So he wrote it, and it was horrendous. It was so bad. It was so bad, and it was causing a lot of stress. I didn't understand why it was so bad because he was a pretty decent writer. So we had Randy, our hired person, and I was sitting there listening to them and just trying to be quiet. And Randy said to him, "What do you want to write about, Joe?" And I was like, okay. And Joe answered that question. He said, well, I want to write about food waste. And I'm thinking to myself, what does this kid know about food waste? But then he went on to say that he wanted to solve the problem. That was a prompt that year. And his experience as a waiter really shined a light on this problem. And I was like, I wasn't sold on it, but he started to brainstorm and write down and start on that essay. And when I read even the first draft, I was kind of impressed. And the reason is because he found what he wanted to write about. So students, don't let your parents tell you what to write about. And just because you have hemophilia doesn't mean you have to write about hemophilia, by the way. And parents, I would really suggest, please ask them what they write about. They want to write about. If they ask your suggestions, go for it. But sometimes unsolicited advice from parents does not go well. And believe me, I've had plenty of World War III in my home because of it. So I feel your pain. So if you do have hired help, the reason why I'm saying be careful, and I will tell you this, and this is when we pretty much stopped using him, was my son wanted to do something about food waste, and he decided that he would go to his preschool, the local preschool, and talk to the preschool students. They were 3 years old about food waste. And when Randy read this in Joe's essay, he said to him, you need to say that you went into your elementary school in 5th grade and you made this presentation. But that was a lie. He was telling him to lie. And I'm still getting goosebumps right now because I was absolutely appalled. I believe in absolute honesty for the Common App whole process to show your best self, because as Barney said, you are special and you are amazing, and it's just your job in the Common App to show those parts of you. So Joe's older sister Rose and I were convinced Joe that that was not the right path, and he went in and kept his original story, which maybe not as impressive as going to an elementary school, but it was sincere and it was honest, and you could sense it from the essay, which I'll read a little bit later so you can get an idea of that. So I'm going to give you 2 good sample Common App essays. I'm going to read them aloud. This is a read aloud, so I want you to get comfortable. And I hope you're not getting too hungry with the bacon on the corner, but it's not going to be that long of a session. You can eat in your next session. So I'm going to read the first sample essay, which was done by my daughter, Rose, who actually is here in the session, and she'll offer some words of wisdom. She has a bleeding disorder, and I want you to listen carefully to her opener, and that's what I've highlighted on the screen. She wrote, "My family's life changed forever when I won the lottery. Not Powerball, not Mega Millions, the genetic lottery. I won hemophilia, a big word straight out of a biology textbook, a disorder reserved almost exclusively for boys. Literally, hemophilia means blood lover. Medically, it means that my blood does not clot, causing me to bleed internally from everyday tasks such as writing, clapping, or playing ping pong. Because of this, one might expect me to hate my blood, or at least resent it. However, I've grown to fit the role of my blood lover name. Hemophilia has brought limitations, but I do not hide from them. Instead, I embrace hemophilia as a crucial component of my identity, not something that defines me, but as an aspect that inspires my passions. When I was 9 months old, a blood transfusion saved my life. I got involved with the school blood drive in my sophomore year, beginning my role as blood lover with the utmost of dignity. For the full drive, I paraded through the hallways wearing the matted, furry mess of decades-old sweat known as the blood drop costume. For the spring drive, I leapt onto a cafeteria table and shrieked toddler style, "Blood drive today, everyone come," until I was not so gently escorted away by the lunch aide. That same week, for an English class project, I shared my personal story as part of a persuasive speech on blood donation. Afterwards, several of my classmates came to me and promised to donate. I realized that getting attention was not the same as getting listeners. To get listeners, I had to speak to people, not just speak at them. I needed a forum, so I turned to the ultimate engine of progress, government. I ran for student council publicist to improve blood drive promotion and won. The next spring, I shared my story with the entire school, speaking in every gym class with students old enough to donate. I did not stand on a table or wear a sweaty suit. My voice shook, but I spoke as myself. In the end, this was the method that provoked the biggest outpouring of support. We collected 98 pints at that drive, breaking the school's record. I am more than comfortable in my own blood. I am proud to use my unique circumstances to make a difference. Every summer, I attend Camp Little Oak, an unconventional paradise where I live alongside spiders, rats, and other girls with bleeding disorders. I am not only a camper, but also an unofficial big sister and mentor for younger campers. This year, I took my arsenal of alcohol swabs and needles to demonstrate my infusion on a picnic table in front of over a dozen people. I love having the opportunity to show them the feeling of you are not alone, the feeling that I treasured in my first years, and the feeling that makes Camp Little Oak my home. As much as I love my blood, I would love it even more if it clotted. So when I set foot in the lab the summer after my junior year, I shifted my focus away from fuel cells and towards the aim of curing my own disorder. I know that my 6 weeks of cell culture did not change the world. However, the chance to directly tackle the problems that affect me and to take a tiny step towards development of an eventual cure was invigorating and inspiring. Just like my blood, I do not clot. I flow from forum to forum, scenario to scenario, and solution to solution for the problems that affect me and others like me. Even though I may have won an obstacle in the lottery, I also won so much more. The opportunity to stand up as myself, hemophilia included, and to use my challenges as a jumping off point to help the bleeder community and the community at large. So that was Rose's Common App essay. Thanks for the claps. I'm sure she appreciates it. I will say, and she's probably gonna be embarrassed by this, but she got into every single college she applied to. Now, she was a very strong candidate, but there is no doubt in my mind that this essay helped her, because I read it to you. Hopefully you can see the essence of her, at least who she was back in high school. Obviously she's 24 years old now, she's changed somewhat, but you can really be there with her. You can be in Camp Little Oak with the spiders. It's so gross. You could be there with her and you can see her jumping on the table. So that's the kind of thing where show, don't tell. So that's an example of a hemophilia Common App essay. But as we know, even if we are, knee deep in the hemophilia community, not everything about our lives is or should be about bleeding disorders. So I want to give you another example. This is my son's Common App essay. Both were shared with permission, by the way. So I kind of alluded to the topic earlier about his. And I'm going to read it to you. And again, the opener, because remember, these admissions officers, they grab the essay or they pull it up on the screen, and you have basically the first line, and they're going to either be like interested or not. And it makes a big difference on how someone reads the remainder of the essay. So I'm going to read this to you. You can take a look at the bacon. This is the one that is for that one. Slabs of oily bacon were piled so high that it was an accomplishment to even be able to pass the plate without toppling over. My family and I are some pretty good eaters. When I say we can eat, we can really eat. That being said, at the end of breakfast, we had a completely untouched sausage platter and enough leftover bacon, eggs, and pancakes to feed another family of 4. I cringed at the thought of all this food being disposed of on a daily basis. I came to the horrific realization that the food waste issue at my family's table for a single meal was a minuscule portion of daily waste throughout the nation. Food waste is nothing new to me from my experience working in 3 restaurants. At Taj Tandoor Indian Grill, I can't count the number of times that at a table I'm serving has ordered far more curry dishes than they are able to consume over the course of several hours, let alone during dinner time. On rare occasion, I may or may not have munched on an untouched leftover chicken skewer cube, or perhaps even devoured a lone vegetable samosa. At El Marco Italian Grill, we provide fresh, warm sourdough bread for each table. Every time I toss leftover bread into the garbage, I think about hungry individuals who could have enjoyed this perfectly good food. After a dinner out with friends in Manhattan, I saw that we each had a considerable portion of our entrees remaining. So I suggested we pack up our leftovers, ask for plastic utensils, and deliver the food to a homeless man on the street. The disheveled man reached out in puzzled gratitude, and I knew, at least for that night, he wouldn't be hungry. One man's trash is another man's dinner, or is it treasure? I forget. Inspired by the ease and apparent effectiveness of my sidewalk food distribution, I set out to tackle the food waste problem in my hometown by redistributing leftover food from restaurants where I work. Conversations with my local food pantry and county legislator made me realize that the problem is even bigger than what I had imagined. The equivalent of 50 pizza pies a week are thrown away at one pizza restaurant alone on Long Island. They also informed me the disappointing reality that the local laws require that only prepared, unserved food can be distributed to those in need. Confronted by legal roadblocks, I decided to start small, literally. I contacted the preschool I had attended and coordinated a talk with the children during their lunch break. I rummaged through the abandoned corners of my toy room in search of plastic food items. After feverishly flinging stuffed animals and toy cars, I grabbed a plastic chocolate layer cake. The glimmer in their eyes as I walked into their classroom, toting what looked like a delicious chocolate cake, was priceless. At the end of the interactive discussion, I distributed stickers and bags for leftovers. This gave the kids a tangible way to understand that wrapping up food not only saves the planet, but also creates 2 meals in one. By the end, I had the kids chanting, "Save the earth and get more food." The problem of food waste can be mitigated by education, and change can begin at home. My own fridge, formerly filled with sticks of expired butter, hamburger buns adorned with green fuzz, and half-consumed jars of sauces, is now, although almost empty, waste-free. But I won't stop there. The problem of food waste is especially important in the hospitality business, whether my future is running a restaurant, serving hotel guests, or managing a theme park. I will tackle the issue during my career and take a bigger bite out of the problem of food waste. Rome wasn't eaten in a day. So that was Joe's Common App essay. And again, I think you're kind of there with the slabs of bacon. Oh, thanks. I'll relate to him that you guys liked it. You're kind of in with him, like, and it's unfortunately a true story. Like, our fridge used to be so gross, and there would be things growing on the cheese and things like that. So after he wrote this essay, our fridge was transformed. You could come to my house any day and now open the fridge, and I won't be embarrassed anymore. So that's the good news. Something else about Joe's essay that you may have noticed, he ended about talking about the hospitality business. So Joe was focused on hospitality and business programs, so he did mention that in his essay. My daughter Rose, who the first essay, she was not sure what she wanted to do in college, so it was a more generic thing about her that could be applied to any college and any program. My son was also very successful in his college quest, and he was a good student, not a like all A student. And I do believe that as well, his Common App essay was really, really helpful in securing not only his admission to a lot of great programs, but also gave him scholarships to some of those institutions and gave him a lot of options. So I want to thank you for listening and bearing with me during this session. And I want to know if anyone has any questions. I will let you know that besides the Common App, by the way, there are so many other things to think about when you or your student is going through the college process. And I do want to let you know about 2 places. Maybe Lindsay, you can kind of drop them down so people can see what they are. It's Collegiate Parent and also Grown and Flown. Those are 2 places that I write for. And they kind of take you through all aspects of the college journey. Very, very helpful things, not necessarily about essays, but about other things that you may be thinking about or concerned about during this journey. So again, I want to thank you. And I want to see if any of you have questions, and then see if Rose wanted to add anything on to this.
Absolutely. And I just entered the links to Collegiate Parent as well. Collegiate Parent is a different website, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Collegiate Parent, one word.
Yes, Collegiate Parent and Grown and Flown. So with that, and feel free, as Shari said, to ask any questions that you may have, but I will turn it over to Rose to see if she has anything else to add.
Shari, which I feel weird calling you mom in this session. I think you really covered a lot. and did an amazing job telling everybody. And I guess if there was anything that I wanted to add, it would be don't be afraid to try out multiple different topics, and like maybe even write like 2 or 3 drafts, especially if you're a junior. Maybe like take a couple weeks to answer question 2 and take a couple weeks to answer question 6, and then let them sit for a week and see which one sounds better, because I did that as part of a course that I took in my high school that was once a week called essay prep. And it was one of the most useful things. It forced me to start early and try answering multiple questions. Highly recommend that to anybody. And also, can't overstate the importance of just being genuine and being honest and being yourself.
That's awesome. I love that. Great pieces of advice as well. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute or post in the chat for Shari or Rose. I'm going to rope Rose into this as well now at this point. Also, I don't know if you saw in the chat, lots of great feedback as people might type in the chat. That was so inspiring, the essay as well as everything you did in your life. Beautiful, it's incredible and inspiring. We saw you infuse Rose in Brooklyn many years ago, so inspiring. Love the blood drop costume visual. Joe's topic so close to heart as we come from a poor country, and it shames us to see the amount of food wasted. Very directed. Thank you for sharing these amazing essays. So much positive feedback, both wonderful essays. Thank you for sharing. So that is fantastic. I have my own question that I will pose to the two of you as well. Speaking of, and Rose kind of touched on this, when is a good time to start writing your essay? So college junior, college senior, college sophomore, what do you suggest in terms of what is a good time frame in order to, suppose it's never too early to start, but.
Well, you can say it's too early to start, actually. So I kind of mentioned that a little bit. If you're a freshman or a sophomore, I think that not focusing on the Common App right now is probably your best bet, because you want to explore what high school has to offer. You want to explore yourself, your world. And you can't do that if you're worrying about, as a freshman or a sophomore, what prompt am I going to answer? When you find out what motivates you, what excites you, what drives you, what you think about all the time, and you're like all crazed about it, that's going to be what your passion is. And then it will fall into place. So I do think you can start too early. I also think you can start too late. So I've unfortunately seen some people that wait really, really last minute, and it doesn't put their best foot forward. So most people don't operate very well on a last minute basis. And then it becomes a very stressful thing in the family. And then it just, when your family's in chaos, it just makes everything worse. So I would suggest that juniors definitely start thinking about it, for sure. And like Rose said, if you want to take a look at a couple of questions, and maybe you see, oh, well, you know what, this is my passion, but I realize I need a couple things to fill in the blanks. Maybe if I volunteered at a homeless shelter once a week, that would really round me out and give me more insight into myself and how I feel about this topic. That would be my suggestion.
That's fantastic. And I do want to read what Rose also just added. Amen. Don't do activities just for college. Do activities because you enjoy them and find them valuable. The writing about it comes later. Fantastic advice. Other questions that other folks have? Yes, Julia.
I'm just curious, Rose, for you and your brother, how many different topics did you start, and how many revisions did it take to get to the point where you were satisfied? And again, it was really moving and charming and inspiring.
Thank you. Good question. So as part of the class I took in school, back when I did the Common App, which was in 2014, the questions were totally different, and I think there were only 4 of them. And we had to answer each one. And the first question, if you remember, which is talk about like a background or a, I guess, identity that's very important to you and why. that was still the first question. And that was the question that I ended up answering. And the other ones, I tried it out. I wrote about, like, I don't know, a random conflict I had. I think that was one, or an argument. And then I just felt like this one felt the most natural. And it also allowed me to like tie together a lot of different aspects of the activities that I enjoyed, because I did a lot of things related to bleeding disorders while I was in high school. So it felt the most natural. And like, it's writing your college essay is like, it can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And you could do something like my brother did and like focus more on like a very particular topic or issue, and then kind of weave in the activities that you did and make it all part of the same story, because it's all kind of part of like forming a narrative, almost like your little own personal autobiography of what matters to you, which I don't know if I would go straight at it with the question of what matters to you, although that's definitely what approach, but you want to make sure that that's what it's getting at the end. And how long did it take? Like, definitely a few months of revision. And like, if you're a senior, it's not too late to start now, but I would start ASAP. If you otherwise, I think junior spring is probably the ideal time. That gives you like a couple months to test out different prompts, a little while to figure out which one is best, and then keep refining with a couple, not too many different opinions, because you don't want to dilute it, but a couple of different opinions.
Great point. And one of the questions I know I had, which I felt like was answered really quite strongly in this presentation and through Rose's essay, was, you know, if you wanted to, you know, I can imagine there are some students or siblings, family members that may want to write about their bleeding disorder as a part of their Common App essay. And one of my questions was going to be, okay, but how do you do that with, you know, of course, there's so many niche terminology, or, you know, you don't want to get too down in the weeds about all the science of it, but I think you did that so well. And just, you know, kind of dipping your toe into explaining what hemophilia was in a very easy to understand way, and then running with it. So I have to applaud you for that, because I think that was such a great example of a strong way to really introduce bleeding disorders and then talk about your experience and personality through that. So awesome.
So yeah, I mean, I would just quickly say that if your student wants to write about their bleeding disorder, then yes. If your student doesn't want to write about their bleeding disorder, that's okay too. There's an opportunity, I'm sure, to mention it in another spot on the Common App or in another way. So you don't have to write about your bleeding disorder just because you have a bleeding disorder.
And if you do write about it, I guess I would say focus less on the details of what it is and more on how you responded to it, because Common Apps wants to hear about how you are as a person.
Awesome.
Along the same line, are there any like obvious pitfalls you would avoid in terms of, I mean, you did it brilliantly. When you've been thinking this through with yourself or other people who've gone through this, or you or Shari, are there some serious pitfalls to avoid in terms of either stigma or anger, or I'm not sure what else?
Well, I mean, I kind of touched on it before. You just want to make sure you stay away from anything controversial as far as your bleeding disorder. You know, it's not a science lesson. So what Rose was saying is that how it affects you as an individual, not just, okay, well, you know, this is how I do my infusion, and it sometimes ruins things for my family and all of that. I think you have to just be very careful not to make it too cliche, like I have a bleeding disorder, so you should feel bad for me and you should let me in the college.
Very fair point. We've got about 21 seconds left, so I just wanted to wrap up. Thank you so much, Shari and Rose, for sharing not only essays, your experience, your wealth of knowledge when it comes to this topic. We're so appreciative, and yeah, just thank you so much for being here.